Hello, everyone. It is Marcia and Tina, and we are doing our third call of Truth and Transformations on the juicy topic of letting go. And this is it's a big topic. It is definitely a big topic. And we are excited to share some tips with you that we had to learn in the process of learning how to let go. So to start off with, a few quick questions that I want to get you thinking, get you started, is have you ever caught yourself replaying the same conversation, the same event over and over again in your head, just thinking maybe if I would have said this, maybe if I would have done this, that I would have a different outcome? Have you ever been hurt so deeply that by a friend, a family member, somebody that you never saw coming, that you didn't expect, and you just can't quite figure out how to move past that? Or when you think of that person or when you see that person, it truly conjures up some really scared feelings that it brings you back to a place you don't want to go to. Or how many of you wish that you could figure out a way to move past the things that you believe that are holding you back? Learning how to let go of them and learning how to move on so that you can actually just start to create some change in your life. I'm sure that this hits home to a number of you, and I can relate on so many levels because letting go was one of my hardest lessons that I had to learn. And I say hard because it's all relative, because it was truly something in my mind that I had a hard time learning how to let go. And once I learned some skills and really started to understand what was mine to control and what was not mine to control, letting go became very easy. And that is something that I would wish for you. The reason that I struggled, if it's okay if I share a little bit of my story, the reason why I believe that I struggled so much with this concept is because I've been a fixer my whole life. I fix problems. I am very logical in my thinking, and I have been kind of the go-to person for a number of people. It led me to a job where I fixed problems. I worked with people physically and helping them transform their bodies, working past physical injuries, and truly just putting the steps in place to help people move forward. So I would fix problems for a living. And when it came time for me to do that in my own life, fixing was the last thing that I needed to do. In fact, I needed to do the complete opposite. I needed to learn how to let go and learn how to surrender. And to be completely honest, surrender was a word I struggled with for a long time, because surrender in my definition felt as though it was that I was quitting or I was giving up. And being a very strong type A person that I am recovering from being, I really struggled with learning how to surrender and learning how to let go. And I didn't want to quit, and I didn't want to give up on problems. So I had to really learn the distinction between what I was holding on to and how much stress it was creating for me in my life for the things that I truly was unable to change anyways. And that was the lesson that Tina definitely helped me to learn as well. And together we were able to come past that and be able to put those action steps in place. And I just have one really quick story that I want to share with you. And it was a fact that it's not a secret. I've shared that we have dealt with substance abuse in our teens, and to the point that much, much larger probably than what most people would be able to understand, and how much it's impacted us. And some of the things that have resulted because of that is that we have changed our whole dynamic. Our friends have changed, and because people don't necessarily know what to say to us in regards to that. And I had this really good friend. She was my go-to person, and she knew the whole story. We had been girlfriends for many years. Our kids were the same age, and it just was something that we had a lot of fun together. But she was a great friend at the same time. And I was there for her through some very serious marital changes and difficult times. And she'd been there for us as well. And then all of a sudden she stopped returning calls and she was nowhere to be found. And it wouldn't return messages. I tried a few times and I kept playing a story in my head thinking that, I mean, there must be a reason, or maybe she's busy. And then, days roll into months and months roll into time. So I'm thinking, all right, so obviously she doesn't want to be around it anymore. She doesn't want to, doesn't want to be part of it. And I took it really personal, and I really I struggled with it. And until one day I ran into her in the store and we came face to face. She took one quick look right at me in the eyes and turned around and walked away. And that was probably one of the biggest kicks in the gut that I have ever had from somebody who was close to me. My very first initial reaction was, okay, well, that really hurt. And I took it personal, and it stung. And in that split second, because of the amount of work that I have done personally on myself in this area, I instantly looked at it and went, thank you for being honest and for showing me who you are. And her time in my life was over, and that was okay. And it was a massive relief off of my shoulders and able to move forward. And so hopefully what we can do is give you some tips and help you with learning how to let go and learning the price that you pay by not letting go. And I can tell you that when you can come into that place when you can surrender and you can truly let go and be vulnerable, some of the most amazing things can happen in your life. And some of the most amazing people can come into your life. And ironically, that is exactly how Tina and I met. And so I believe wholeheartedly that learning how to surrender and let go is an incredibly valuable and important lesson. So thank you for listening to my part of the story. And I would like to turn it over to Tina, who is going to share some tips and stories herself about the importance of letting go. And Tina comes to this with a wealth of knowledge and has learned many tips and many keys that have helped her to move forward in her life. And we're just going to pass the call over to her and let Tina share her juice with us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Marcia. Thanks for your insights and thanks for your sharing your story, because I know it's not the easiest thing sometimes, because I certainly can relate on that level. But again, that's the way that we are able to move forward in our lives and to really make a difference impacting people, is when we are able to, really get into the meat of what it is, because talking through it, voicing it, verbalizing it is really it really is one of the ways of letting go of things. Mm-hmm. So kudos to you, my friend. We've both come very far together, and you amaze me every single day. So thanks. So we're going to get into talking about, as Marcia has said, letting go and surrender. So this is something, as she said, we could spend a ton of time on. And obviously that's not what we're going to be doing in this call, because we want to keep this call to, a certain time frame. But what I would like you to do is, just as Marcia said in the beginning, is just look back at your life and some of the things that you've experienced, some situations that you've had, maybe something that you've done that you've maybe blamed yourself for, something that you've been a part of. Is there something that you've been carrying some guilt around for? Maybe something that you've said, maybe something that you didn't say that you wanted to say. Is there something that someone may have said or done, something that they've done to you that you have really let really harm you at the core, and that you've been carrying that for a long time? Maybe it's a traumatic experience. We all go through different things in our lives. Maybe there's been the loss of a loved one. Maybe there's been, a breakup of a relationship, or there's been some challenging situations with parenting your children. Different things like that. These situations can actually allow us to, we can allow them to basically paralyze us. Sometimes we can allow these things to stop us in our tracks from moving forward towards what it is that we really want, because we allow it to fester within our soul and our spirit to the point where it really debilitates us from moving forward in our lives. So I'm sure that you have at least one thing that might have come up for you. Make a little note of what that situation, that phrase, that, whatever it was, that relationship, whatever that is, and maybe make a note of that. And some of them are pretty painful. Some of them might not be so painful, but they've still, really wreaked havoc on your life. So get those down on paper. It, really can prevent us from becoming who it is that we're supposed to be. All of us are here for a specific purpose, and it may be more than one purpose. However, when we are allowing ourselves to be held back in different ways for different reasons, it really stops us from really shining our true light and really being able to impact the people that we're here to impact, or do the things that we're really supposed to do. Let your gifts and talents shine because of this one thing or these few things that we're, holding on to. It can really manifest because we aren't letting go, and our health can be affected. You may know someone who's worried themselves, to death, or worried themselves to illness, because they just have stressed over something that they had no control over except themselves. And because they didn't take, charge within themselves to let that go, it did cause them to be unwell. It could be something simple like a phrase, something that someone has said to trigger you that can snap you right back to that place. So even when you're going on with your life and you feel like, okay, I'm beyond it, I moved past it, everything's all good now, there can be a music you could hear, there could be, a sound that you hear, something someone says that can snap you and take you back to that place where that original moment happened. And, again, can once again put you on a path of being off path, basically, right? Off your course. So, and it's in the moment that you have a decision, and you make a decision whether you're going to let that continue to affect you or not. So it's said a lot by people, just let it go. What are you holding on to that for? Just let that go. And then it's also said by people, it's easier said than done. But is it really? Because, you really are pretty powerful. We really are pretty powerful, and we are able to truly make a choice, make a decision to decide to let go. And so this brings me to a story that I'm going to share with you a little bit about my journey. And this is a story about my biological dad. So as I've mentioned before, I was born to a 17-year-old girl, and my mom was a young mom, and my mom grew up in a pretty harsh, tough upbringing. So when she, had the first boy tell her that he loved her and she loved him, and I'm the surprise, I'm the gift that became part of this planet because of that relationship. So it was, being a 17-year-old, having a 17-year-old mother when you're an infant, and growing up in an environment where she was really still a child herself, who really didn't get to, experience things normally, as you would say, normally, it created some, difficulties for sure. So, obviously we're not going to, we can't move forward looking back. However, there's been a lot of lessons along the way that have come as a result of the situation. So fast forward, I'm going along in my life. My biological dad was not part of my life. So he came in and out my first 4 years, which I don't remember. And then fast forward, I saw him when I was 15. I saw him when I was 30. And I had a few kids. And, he wanted to start spending some time with me in my life at that point. So I was open to it. But I said to him, I'm a mom now. I've got 2 little kids. And, these boys are everything to me, and it's personal. So if you can't stay committed and be part of our lives on a consistent basis, then it's okay. Just tell me, because I'm not going to settle for less than that. And so he did say, yes, I do want to be part of your life. And so I was reconnected with some siblings I didn't really know that well, which was really beautiful. And him and his wife, embraced myself and my kids. But then again, things started to shift. So he started to cancel weekends and started to, sort of repeat the patterns of all of that inconsistency. I had enough inconsistency in my life. I didn't need any more. And I had a hard time being consistent myself. So I didn't need any help with that. So one day I just told them, we're done. I'm really done here. If you can't remain consistent and sort of be an adult in this situation with me, that's totally fine. I respect that. Go about your way. I'll go about my way. And that'll be the end of it. So that's what happened until 7 years later, when I wasn't feeling well. One summer I developed a fever, and there was nothing else to tell why I had a fever. There was no illness. There was no infection. I wasn't sick. I just felt exhausted, and I had this fever. And so I was going through some, assessments to see what was happening. But at the same time, within that week, I got a call that he, lives in Kingston, 4 hours away, and he was in palliative care. So what happened was that my illness was directly related to his illness. As he got worse, I got worse. So I realized how, even though I thought that I wasn't affected by that relationship and the inconsistency and the feelings of abandonment, rejection, all those stories that I'd made up in my head about the situation, because I really didn't know any different, it affected me. and my health and completely debilitated me. So once he had passed away, I thought, okay, I'm good. We did our forgiveness. I've let that go. It's time to move on with the rest of my life. And then my body had other plans for me. So my body just shut down on me completely and, went into a depression basically. So I'm a very positive person. So my doctor said to me, do you think you're depressed? And I'm like, I'm not depressed, but my body is depressed. And that was because what I've realized, I had stuffed the feelings. I had suppressed the feelings for so long that now everything was starting to bubble over. And so it was bubbling over in this great big mess that I had to start to work through to really learn how to truly surrender and let go to that situation. So, fast forward, I'm at a place now where I do have a connection with him. He has passed away. I still communicate with him and speak to him all the time because I do believe that, we've got angels among us. And so I'm really blessed and grateful that now I have the relationship with him I always wanted, but I've worked to create it. And I had to really work through a lot of forgiveness, surrender, and letting go of the story I made up in my head about that whole situation, because none of it was, it was really manifested by myself. So thank you for letting me share that. And perhaps you can relate on some situation, with that, with a relationship in your life or someone that because I'm sure that we all have been in situations where we've kind of made up a story about what someone has thought or said when really, when you get to the meat of it and have the conversation deep down about it, it really wasn't about that at all. So what I hope to do today is to go through sharing some insights and stories and tips, like Marcia said, that you can relate to on some level. So keep your pen and paper handy. Make any notes that you have. If you do have any questions after, we will be posting this call, and you can certainly post the questions or comments in the group or private message us as well, and we'll be happy to spend some time communicating with you about it today. But what I'd love for you to do is to take some realizations of some areas in your life that would be better serving you if you were really to just let them go, okay? And so let's talk about what letting go is all about. So when we talk about letting go and surrender, the definition of it is that it's the sudden cessation, okay, or basically stopping of an inner pressure or the dropping of a weight. It is accompanied by a feeling of relief and lightness with an increased happiness and freedom. So it's an actual mechanism of the mind, and everyone has experienced it on occasion. So if me reading that to you, you think to yourself, well, I don't really know if I've ever experienced that. Well, just imagine if, for example, you're in the middle of an argument and you realize how completely ridiculous it is, that you're spending so much time on this argument for whatever it is about, whether it's about, making dinner and you told him not to cut the meat that way, but he cut the meat that way or whatever, you start to laugh. You just feel like this is so stupid. Why are we even having this conversation about this right now? As soon as you start to laugh and you let that go, the pressure is relieved and you come up from anger and fear or feeling of being attacked or, feel of being told that you're wrong or whatever, to suddenly be feeling just free and happy. Like it was just wasted energy because it wasn't effective for anyone to be going through that situation. So imagine how it could be if you could do this anytime, anywhere, for all the situations in your life. So when we talk about feelings, how do we pick them or create them? People say, well, I don't like spending time with so-and-so because he makes me feel. When people say makes me feel, I used to say that all the time. No one can make you feel anything. It's a choice. You choose how you feel. You decide based on the situation how you're going to feel about it. So if you decide, I'm not going to let this take me off my path. I'm not going to let this situation allow me to feel guilty because I'm choosing to feel, strong in my power. I'm choosing to feel, good about this situation, or I'm choosing to feel gratitude about this, then you can completely turn things around. If we aren't able to take a pause in the moment and assess what we're feeling and choose our feelings, some of what can happen is that you may go into what I did was suppression and repression. So it was like, for me, repression is subconscious. So subconsciously, I didn't really realize how abandoned and rejected I felt by my father. And that related to every relationship I had with a male person throughout my whole entire life. So because I was able to recognize that and I was able to learn to let that go, it totally changed things for me. But if people handle, the feelings, suppressing them, stuffing them down, getting ticked off with someone and just thinking, oh, and just stuffing it, not dealing with it, not breathing through it, not letting it go, then it can start to build up. It can cause mood swings, irritability. Sometimes we see these kids and we have these kids or teenagers and they're just friggin' pissed off. They're frustrated. And a lot of times it's because they have suppressed feelings. They have, repressed these feelings and emotions that they don't know how to get out. Even with a little kid, a tantrum in a store. I remember when Travis was 3 years old and we were at the grocery store and he took a full-on tantrum in the middle of the grocery aisle. Grocery cart full of frozen goods, toddler in the front, got my, not even a toddler. Caleb was like 6 or 7 months old, or 1. He would have been just a toddler, so he was about 1. Travis is on the floor screaming his face off because he wanted cookies and I wasn't giving him cookies. Full on, kicking, screaming, knocking things off the shelf, like totally freaking out. And then, I grab him in one arm, grab the other one in the other arm, tell them, full grocery cart, aisle 3, I got to go. And they're like, okay, no problem. I go out to the car. I let him freak out in the back of the truck. He loses his crap. He falls asleep within 5 minutes. He didn't suppress any of that. He didn't hold on to any of that. He was totally fine. He was totally good to go. So, if he'd held on to that, or if I held on to that thinking, oh, my kids are awful. What does the, grocery clerk think of me? What does the manager of the store think of me leaving all my groceries? Like, I didn't carry any of that with me. I left it there. It wasn't worth my energy because in the moment, that's just what I needed to do. So if we can relay that to us as adults, and when we are, not allowing ourselves to sort of vent and feel what we need to feel, sometimes we have to have like a tantrum of sorts. Sometimes it's okay to just let your feelings come up and express them. It's better than, stuffing it way down until you finally blow your top with someone. Which brings me to expression. Okay, so some people, when we talk about handling feelings, some people are very expressive, but not necessarily filtered. It's very, body language. It's like verbal. It's like not thinking what you're saying before you say it. It's overreacting. And it can be very harmful to the person that you're dealing with and also to yourself, because a lot of times we can't take that stuff back. So it's really, really important to take a pause when you start to feel that stuff start to bubble up and surface. Take a little time out for yourself. Take a few minutes to breathe through it. Let the feelings come up, and I'll talk to you more about this, but to breathe through it so that you're not totally, hurting the feelings of someone that you really do love and care about. And then escape. For some people, in order to handle their feelings, they'll just escape. They'll be, maybe overeating will be the way that they'll deal with it. They'll perhaps use drugs and alcohol. Some people might use their devices. You see families all the time at restaurants, and they're totally not even looking at each other. They're not even communicating with one another because they're on their phones, they're on their devices, they're hiding in this Facebook world. They're hiding in this whole social media world that is not real, right? To escape. And then some people like shopping, some people like, spending time with people. I used to be the type where when I was in college and high school, I hated being alone and I hated having no noise. I couldn't handle quiet because it made me think. I had time to think. I didn't like being with my thoughts because I didn't know how to sort through them because I was, stressed and challenged and frustrated and lonely, and I had all this stuff I'd buried deep down inside. And when I had no noise and I had no distraction of people, it all started coming up and I didn't know what to do with it. Now I embrace the quiet, because now you can realize, you can learn that once you embrace the quiet and you start to work through these things, the quiet is when you actually hear what it is that you really do deserve to hear about your life and where you're going and what's important for you and what you can focus on. So those are some of the ways that we deal with feelings. So here's a phrase for you. Ask yourself, how many times have I said this? If someone says to you, well, you know what, when it comes to that situation with so-and-so or whatever, you should really let that go. Have you ever heard yourself say, well, I just can't let it go? I can't. And think of a few other things that you think you can't do. I can't cook very well. I can't, work out really hard because my knee hurts. I can't, whatever. What are some of the things that you've said I can't about? And what I want you to do is change that to I won't. You can't or you won't. What if you said to myself, well, what can I do? That's not working really well for me, but what can I do? What are you choosing to do? What could you choose to do differently? Many times we let ourselves get caught up in blame when it comes to situations in our lives, that would be better left surrendered or let go. We blame ourselves. We blame others. That's easier than accepting responsibility of our hand in it. And if you do any reading or learning and personal growth and the law of attraction in our lives, we manifest our life. We are the creators of our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So sometimes it's like, well, you know what? I didn't attract, that person cheating on me. Or I didn't attract, well, maybe you had a hand in it. If you look at this situation and think about what you were ignoring, maybe what you weren't paying attention to, because our intuition is really powerful. So acknowledge what hand you did have in it. Forgive yourself, let it go, and acknowledge, what you would do different next time. When you start to feel that feeling come up, you're going to pay attention because it's telling you something. That's your inner guiding compass telling you something isn't right here. You need to pay attention. By law of attraction, whatever you think or say about another person, you really do bring to you. So finding gratitude in those that you feel have hurt you. Finding gratitude in those that finding love for those people in some way, shape, or form. Because when you do that, you're really finding gratitude and love for yourself. Choosing the positive, actually just one sec on that, is when we complain about another person. Think about when you've really complained and bellyached and gone on and on and on about another person. It may feel good in the moment to kind of vent it and get rid of it, but you really don't feel great after. You still feel like crap. You're actually harming yourself. When we complain about someone else, it's us that will suffer. Our life will suffer. Many times they don't even know we're even doing it, so it hasn't affected them, right? We're the ones who suffer. So think about being, choosing the positive, being reflective. Am I going to look at the glass half full in this situation, or is, half empty? And you know what it's like to be around someone who's a glass half empty. It's draining, literally. You don't want to spend a lot of time with them, right? So think about that. And then when it comes to the company that we keep, so the company that we keep has a lot to do with how we do or don't let go. So if you think of the people you spend time with and, ask yourself, how would they deal with the situation? Because if you're spending time with people who gripe and go on and hold on to things, let it fester, keep rehashing situations, keep arguing, we become a product of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And if you're really looking to move forward from some situations and events and, pattern repeats in your life, you may need to evaluate who you're spending your time with. We can let people, affect us in a positive way, where they're inspiring, they're upbeat, they're motivating. We like spending time with them. We can have conversations with them, which really helps us see all sides of a situation, or people can really infect us, like a virus. It starts off as you just kind of get a little bit of a bad feeling when you're in their space, but then after a while it wears on you and wears on you and wears on you, where it's almost like a force field when you're around them and you're like, oh, like I just can't take this energy anymore. So we can create peace for ourselves when we start letting go of wanting to change others and control others. So if you're around those kinds of people, taking note that we really can't change a person. Sometimes we try to coach them, we try to coerce them, we try to manipulate them with love to get them back on track to what we think is on track for them. Sometimes we kind of want to get even with someone who's really ticked us off. But nothing about any of that feels good, right? The only thing you can change about a situation with a person who you feel you want to help is yourself and how you're dealing with it. So if you've got someone who would be better served, in letting go of something, or ending whatever it is that they're doing to torment or manipulate you, that in your eyes that's what's happening, you can't do anything about what they're doing. All you can do is take control of what it is that you're doing or not doing, and ask yourself, what am I going to do? Right? Because that's all that you can change. So wanting to be right or make others wrong is no way to create peace. And again, it doesn't make you feel good, to prove someone is wrong, or that they're dumb, or that they've made a mistake, because they know we have internal compasses. We have internal guiding systems. Someone knows when what they're doing is wrong. When your son is talking to you and he's lying straight to your face, he knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly that he's lying. He knows. There's no point in trying to prove him wrong, prove him right, prove him wrong, whatever, because it doesn't work. We know internally. So the best thing for you to do is just understand that there is divine justice. There is karma, right? You don't have to do anything. You've had situations in your life where, there may be someone who, who's done some not so nice things or behaved in a particular way, and karma comes around and bites them in the ass. And it's kind of like, we don't wish that on anybody, but we don't have to bring down our enemies. We don't have to, do anything to these people that we feel have wronged us, so that we feel have hurt our feelings or anything like that. They'll bring themselves down by their own hand. It's not up to us. It's not up to us. And even when you do get even, then you're the one who has to deal with karma, because then you've done something that's not, right for you with your internal compass. So, it's just something to think about. The moment we try to force an outcome or control an outcome, make it happen, create it, plan it, whatever, is the moment that we really do doubt the path, doubt our creation, because there really is truly a path, a plan for all of us. And if we really do surrender and let go and trust the process, then things have a way of working themselves out. If we focus within instead of without, being so distracted by what's going on outside of us, and focus within and really listening to ourselves, then, and creating peace within ourselves by removing that which is causing us, to be out of peace, then that's when our life can completely change. So letting go is like anything new that you're trying to do. So you'll know that when you're there, it'll feel right. You'll know when you're right on track with it. You'll feel whole, when you've worked to let go of those things that have been causing you to feel, almost ill and unease in your life. And it's just like, I gave the example that, riding a bike, you might not remember when you learned how to ride a bike, but if you do remember how to ride a bike, when you learned, is that, at first it's like, it's uncomfortable, you're unbalanced, you're nervous, you're afraid, you don't want anyone to let go of the back of it. And then all of a sudden you're going and you're just upright and you just kind of feel the wind and you feel like something's kind of taking you, down the street on your bike. And you're on the right path because you got it, you figured it out. It's the same thing with letting go. The first time it's going to be, it could be challenging. It may feel like it takes a long time. It may feel like, did I really let it go? Have I not let it go? Something could come up where you think I didn't let that go, because obviously that wouldn't bother me if I didn't let it go. But as you get better at practicing the skills, I'm going to give you some skills later, you're going to realize that you can start to just change it in an instant, because it's in a moment of decision that you can truly change everything. When we have these opportunities, we can see these as opportunities instead of obstacles. All right. So I like to look at, challenges as a chance for change. You can see it differently. Sometimes these things that come up are actually blessings in disguise. So think about a time in your life when you've had, maybe there was a job you were going for. It was a promotion you were going for, and you'd put so much time and effort, into the company, into the job, into the, fulfilling your duties. You worked really hard towards a promotion. You thought you were the best person for it. You totally rocked your interview or whatever. And then maybe you didn't get it. But then maybe something better came along. Or maybe you realized that really wasn't what you wanted in the first place. These different things we can see as, we don't always see it at the time, but later we'll recognize that there's a reason it didn't happen the way you wanted it to, because it was not meant to happen that way. Do you have something big in your life that you haven't surrendered or let go of, or something that you haven't forgiven? And I want you to ask yourself, do I? So ask myself, do I have something big that I haven't surrendered or let go of? Is there something that you haven't forgiven, or someone you haven't forgiven? And I want you to ask yourself, how is it serving you? Because as crazy as it sounds, when we hold on to something, we find a way for there to be a payoff for us. It's like the fear of change is more paralyzing than the fear of staying in the crap situation. So if you feel like you're stuck, ask yourself, what am I gaining from being here? Well, it's easier than making a change. Reaching out that way would be super uncomfortable because I'd have to talk to so-and-so, or I'd have to, whatever. So right now I'm kind of safe in my zone, even though that's really upsetting to me. It's familiar. So I'm going to stick with it. So ask yourself, what is the payoff for what you're actually doing? But also ask yourself, what are you missing out on? What are you denying? And who is suffering as a result of you not letting this go? Because again, once you identify what that is and you feel that come up again the next time, you're going to realize, like, oh my goodness, how much energy, and of my life have I really been giving to this? It's not deserved over there. Whatever you're upset about, it's happened already. Like, when we started this call is in the past. We can't go back and change it. So it's over. So it's like, get over it already, because it's in the past. Right? Every negative feeling that you have is always about the past somehow. So let's stop clinging to the past. Let's stop giving that our energy, because it's gone already. That will allow you to be who you really are, not who you were. I'm going to say that again. When we stop clinging to the past, we learn how to, just get over it. It's over already. Not giving it any more energy, then that will allow you to be who you really are, not who you were, because you're not the same person you were 5 minutes ago. Look at yourself. If you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, 1 year ago, look at the pictures. Look in the mirror. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly changing. This vehicle, this body that we have to get around in our lives, of course it changes. And for some it changes, nicer than others or faster than others, right? But we're still the same soul and spirit, but we evolve. How you handle a situation now is not how you would have handled it 5 or 10 years ago. I hope that you've really grown and improved, right? So when we let go, I want you to think of it as releasing to be gone forever of the past and being loving and receptive in the present. When we are reactionary, we're living by stress. And we're acting as if our outer world is more real than our inner world. Really, what really matters is the inner world, because the outer world is constantly changing. You take yourself with you wherever you go. So it's constant practice and awareness. So I just want to share with you an exercise that I did at an event. Brendan Burchard did an Experts Academy. And so I want you to think about all the times in your life when someone said something, not very nice to you, or something was done to you. Now, I don't want you to think about all the times you festered about it, or all the times you brought it up, or all the times you relived it in your mind. I just want you to think about that one time that someone said to you, you know what, you're getting kind of chubby, or you know what, you really suck at that. Why are you doing that? Or, why did you choose that as a career? Like, I want you to think about some of those times in your life when someone said something to you or did something, maybe they hurt you. Maybe it was, really serious. Someone betrayed your trust, or maybe someone, physically harmed you. Think about those times. Typically, if we put a lot of thought to that, there may be a handful, maybe 10, to 15 times that there was something really impactful that you chose in the moment to allow it to completely alter your path. And I want you to think about how much energy that has been given throughout your lifetime. In fact, chances are your life might have been directed by that. You may have directed your life by that. So now I want you to think about, we're going to put that over here, like all those situations, all those, sayings, all those, whatever happened is over here on this side. And now I want you to think about all the times that you've heard, I love you, you're amazing, you're so good at what you do, thank you, thanks mom for making my lunch, mommy, you're so pretty, or you know what, you're so beautiful, I love spending time with you, or how do you do that, that's incredible. Think about all those times that someone has said something kind to you, loving to you, thoughtful. And maybe you've even said it to yourself, looked in the mirror and you got dressed up and thought, wow, I'm looking pretty good. Think about all those times, like thousands of them, right? So isn't it interesting that we have these thousands of opportunities for us to really receive love and gratitude and respect? However, we guide our life based on these, 10 to 15 at the most situations or, experiences that we've been part of. We let this guide and direct and create our life instead of focusing over here. So what would life be like if we focused over here and we let this stuff just stay where it is because it's in the past, and focus over here? So you can set the intention, you can decide that from now on is where you're going to focus. Working on self-love, as we talked about, last week's call, working on letting go, working to be whole, because your life is more important to you than these things or, actions that were part of your past. Focusing on your purpose, as we talked about, in the first call. You can have emotions, but here's the thing, guys. The key is to be aware of them and of how long you are choosing to stay there. So, someone cuts you off on the highway. All right, you're going to be a little steamed in the moment, but are you going to be like angry all day long? For what? For what? You think about holding on to that. And what happens when you hold on to that for too long? The faster you overcome your emotions, the faster you are no longer attached to your past. So there's a moment of decision, and you always, always, always have a choice. So adopting the mantra, nothing has meaning except the meaning I give it. Think about a situation that's happened to you and the meaning that you're giving it, because we're constantly changing and growing. So you can decide, what meaning am I giving this? It's a moment of decision, a moment of letting go. So asking yourself, what's the worst that can happen? What can I change about it? Again, just speaking to, someone hurting you one time and thinking about it over and over again. It's illogical that we allow ourselves to be hurt by something that happened once, but we're letting ourselves be hurt over and over and over, right? And that's because you're choosing it. So choose different. We worry ourselves sick, right? Allow yourself to let go, because again, you can only control you. So also the one thing I wanted to say, and we spoke about this in the beginning, is the memories of the past, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent, feelings of the present, good, bad, or indifferent, fear of the future, and not being able to let it go can cause a whole lot of pain and suffering. And not only for us, but for those that are in our circle, those that have to put up with us, really. You think about the ripple in the pond. So you think about maybe you've had a parent who has held on to something from their childhood, and it has radiated out to you and your siblings and beyond. It's probably gone into your kids at some point. Was it worth them holding on to that? And that's where we can ask ourselves, what can I do different? Because I don't want to, have these patterns repeat and affect, my kids and generations to come because of something that really is so long ago and should stay where it was. So I had this really cool opportunity to have something done called Heart Math, and I was in Florida a few months ago. And Heart Math, when we talk about how, we feel waves of emotion, it's like, think of waves in the ocean. We feel these waves of emotion come over us. And sometimes it can be hard to get out of the surf because we allow ourselves to get stuck up in it. So this Heart Math was where there was a monitor put on my finger, and basically it was like electrodes. So I was looking at this big gigantic screen, and what he told me to do, John Denny, he told me to focus on something that brought me great joy, focus on something that I really, loved doing, that I felt passionate about, that I was really excited, and I felt like I was in my element. And so when I did, that on the screen, you could see my heart, my heart ECG reading. So my heart had these big, beautiful waves, right? So it was perfect QRS complexes, the whole, deal. It was gorgeous. It looked awesome. It was perfect, right? So then he said, I want you to think about something that really has you upset and stressed out. And so I started focusing on a situation that I was kind of in the middle of, and the person happened to be there. And all of a sudden the screen started going like this. And so it looked like I was in VTAC. Now I wasn't, but because of the way that I was feeling, my internal, system, all my cells were reacting. My blood was reacting, like my breathing pattern reacted. Every system I have reacted. I felt sick to my stomach. Like, when you think about these feelings of situations of stuff you haven't let go of, where does it affect you? Some people get a headache. Some people get like neck pain. Some people get digestive issues. Some people get back cramps. Like, it affects our body in a way. And so that was in the moment. That was like not even 2 minutes of that. So imagine if I held on to that for years, for decades. And that's what people do. That's what you might do. That's what maybe you've done, right? So when you think about your health and you think about how you felt and you think about how you've responded in situations or how you've been open to doing new things or, you know, how you focused on abundance or haven't focused on lack, like these things totally affect us. So it's like a wave. The feeling comes up over you. Now, here's the deal is we have, you know, it can come up and it can last like 45 seconds or it can last years. It's totally up to you what you want to do with it. So now I want you to apply this, you know, again, it's kind of like the kid having a tantrum. When they have the tantrum and they're done the tantrum, they don't carry that with them. They let it go. So how cool would it be if we could focus on doing that? So how do we let go? All right. This, again, could be a whole conversation for a week, probably. I'm going to give you a couple of things to try. So if you've ever done yoga or stretching or even massage, you're taught by the teacher or the instructor, you know, or the therapist to breathe into the tight spots. So if they're doing a massage on your neck and you're feeling the super pinch in the back of your neck and it's super uncomfortable, if you hold your breath, what's going to happen? It's not going to go away. It's going to actually feel worse probably. Whereas if you focus on breathing into that tight spot, eventually it dissipates. It's like if you're doing a stretch and you're doing a hamstring stretch and you've got your leg up in the air and your leg is shaking and like you're, you know, it's just like totally fighting or resisting you. If you just back off a little bit, you breathe into where you're feeling the tension, all of a sudden it lets go and then you can take it farther. So I want you to think about that when you have a feeling come up. So you've written some things down about situations you've been exposed to in your life, something that's been holding you back. So I want you to actually intentionally spend some time with it and bring that feeling up. I want you to think about where in your body are you feeling it. I want you to stay with it and let it run its course, okay, without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. You're just going to let it come up. Don't stuff it, okay? Don't start a conversation in your head about it. Don't relay the story. Just feel the feeling. Let the feeling come up. Don't resist it. Don't condemn it. Don't vent it. Don't resist it. Don't moralize it. Just let it come up and feel it. Notice where you're feeling it in your body. A feeling that is not resisted will disappear, just like the tight muscle, right? As the energy behind it dissipates, it's going to go too, right? So when letting go, ignore the thoughts, okay? Just focus on the feeling itself. Not all the thoughts around it that are reinforcing and breeding more thoughts. Let them go. Just focus on the feeling. Breathe into it. All right, allow it to dissipate, allow it to go. And then you may want to spend a few minutes journaling, okay? Now, journaling is a really great way. If you are feeling the feelings come up, you can work through the breathing or you can start writing. I know that's one of my ways, and I know Marsha's really good at that as well. She loves to journal. So journaling is a great way to get your thoughts out on paper, even if you just do a verbal dump and then you rip it up and throw it out if you don't want anyone to read it. Burn it. Whatever, get rid of it, garbage it, whatever you have to do, but let it come out so that you can move on from it and you've let it go. All right. The more that we do that, the more we let it go. So right now, you know, I hope that helps you have a few ways that you can work on letting go. Your future peace, your health and your happiness is being constructed in this moment right now, in every moment. So you can ask yourself, you know, how am I creating my peace right now and my peace in the future by what I'm focused on and what I'm thinking about. And take that with you as you move through the next week. So a few resources that I wanted to just share with you is I used a book by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I love him. He's one of my favorites. The book is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Also, David R. Hawkins has a great book called Letting Go. And, you know, when I talked about the feeling coming up, he goes into a lot of detail and depth about it, but it's a really great book as well. And anything Brené Brown you can get your hands on. You know, Brené Brown has some great books as well. Louise Hay is one of my favorites. You can watch any of Louise Hay's videos, and also Wayne Dyer. So thank you for tuning into this call. I hope that that gave you some value and some ideas as to what you can do to start to move through some of the things that may have been gripping you as far as surrender and letting go is. And next week, Marsha will be talking on the power of language. And you know what? It's really valuable. I spoke to you today a little bit about the phrase, I can't and I won't. And Marsha's going to go into great depth about even more things that we can tweak in our languaging that can totally, you know, transform our life and the way in which we are receiving and putting ourselves out there every day. So thanks you guys for tuning in. I'm going to pass it back over to Marsha.
Wow. Now I am blown away because I actually have like 3 pages of notes and you and I talk about this stuff all the time. So
I know.
It blows my mind. There were things that I heard differently today that I hadn't heard before. And I'm sure that's the same for everyone else. There's a couple key takeaways that hit me that I will share. And the first one is feel. And because we avoid feeling. Most of us can't create the change that we're looking for, whether it's letting go, whatever it is, because we're avoiding feeling. And there's nothing wrong with feeling. Once you feel it, you can decide what you're going to do with it. You can create something different. You can choose something different. So stop trying to stuff the feelings, suppress them, because whatever you resist is going to continue to persist. And I just think that was a really key point in breathing through it. I love the example that you gave about breathing through it with the muscles, because I see that with clients all the time. And they're just completely blown away that when I'm helping them with a stretch, and they're in this mindset of push, 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 push. And the brain is brilliant, because when you push through something, when you're trying to push really hard into a stretch, what happens is then they're trying to stretch the hamstring, for example, and their back is killing them, because the brain sends all the signals to the surrounding muscles to say, stop movement, because I don't want hurt, because really the brain's primary function is to avoid pain. So ironically, you're fighting this yourself over and over and over again. And I show them, and we breathe through it and we let it go. And it's amazing. They can just double their range in no time. So I think that that's a really powerful example that you can use in almost any aspect of your life. But learning how to breathe through it is really good. I found a quote that I wanted to add just because it spoke to me today. And ties perfectly with what you're saying. What happens is of little significance compared to the stories that we tell ourselves about what happens. Events matter little, only the stories of the events affect us. So if you think about how often you've replayed and you've carried that, and imagine what it's done to you, it's learning how to let that go can be extremely powerful. And that was another one of the points to think about. I had so many, to be honest. I had so many that I wanted to add. But I really liked, the other thing I would say, I would really like the example of focus your energy on the positive things as opposed to the negative things. Now, we say that all the time, but the example that you gave of it, that we give so much energy to those 10 to 15 things that have been said to us or happened in our life, as opposed to all of these other good things. And truly, these 10 to 15 things over here may have completely altered or changed the direction of your life. And I can think of a couple, and I held a lot of anger towards those things. And I've come to the place now that I just look at that and go, okay, so I've learned, and I believe that this is where I was supposed to be anyways. So it's okay, and learning to let that go. So those are just a few of my takeaways. I cannot emphasize enough, journal. Write it down, dump it out, let it go, do whatever it is that you need to do. But in that moment, when you have something you can't let go, you physically have to create a shift. And that's really not easy to do. I completely understand and can relate. So you have to do something to create that shift. Write it down. I turn my audio on my phone sometimes and just record what's going on in my head. Talk out loud, read, whatever it is, you've got to create a shift. And that will help you to let go. It's not something you're going to get the first time. It's going to come from practice. And it's going to come from practice and choosing not to stay in that place. So
let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just, you brought me to the point that I don't think I mentioned it, but it can take time to practice working through it. However, it can, yes. Also, we are pretty amazing at deciding in an instant, that someone can't be trusted, or, someone says something to you and you decide, I'm never coming back here again, or, whatever it is. Kids are great at this because kids know who they feel comfortable with or don't feel comfortable with, but we can just as easily decide in the moment. And the example I've used before is that when I was in high school, a boyfriend said to me, I think you're getting really chubby. And that was the day I decided I'm going to start making myself sick. And that was the day I decided I'm chubby, I'm fat. And so that began a whole, big, long turmoil for me. Now, I'm sure there were other contributing factors. I was in a home that was, my parents were separating. There was all this stuff going on. But I decided that minute, just like, with you and I having our situations with boys, in that we decided that we weren't going to let it take us down, that we were going to, let go and surrender and have faith that there's a plan, right? And so it is a process. There is, journaling is absolutely so powerful. We can't stress that enough. Journal. Again, just recognize your gift and being able to decide in a moment how you want it to not be anymore, because you have that power. You can decide and have that power. So awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm glad that brought that up for you. Again, this is a topic, honestly, that we could go on for a very long time. So we just wanted to go through that again and cover that. Thank you so much, Tina, for your points. It was fantastic. And I believe that the rest of you have taken some very solid gold nuggets out of that you can apply to your life. If you have any questions about this call, or something that it brings up for you, or something that you would like maybe clarification on, please feel free to post in the group. It is a private group. Once this call is up there, if you have other people that you would like to tune into the call, add to the group, then feel free to add them in, or send us a message, or contact us. We are truly doing this to create a ripple effect of allowing women to believe and truly step into what they are capable of, and getting past all those hurdles and breaking through them that have held them back before. So please feel free to share. And I can't wait till our call on Wednesday on the power of language and our words.
Yay. Awesome. All right. Signing off. Bye, everyone.